Whatever kind of classroom you may find yourself walking into, empowering educators is the spark, the anchor, and the perspective you need. It is your quick hit of clarity and perspective, crafted for teachers who want to teach with purpose, build stronger relationships, and create classrooms where students thrive. Think of it as your daily dose of good practice in action. Practical, grounded, and designed to create spaces where students feel seen, safe, and ready to learn, while also allowing teachers to find their own authentic flow. All right, let's dive into today's episode. Welcome to Empowering Educators. This is Ben Russell from Empowerment Ed. If you've been in education long enough, you've probably heard the words learning intention and success criteria more times than you've had hot coffees while being at school. And if you've ever dipped into an online teacher forum, you'll know these terms can divide a room faster than a debate about homework in primary school. On one side, you've got the academics insisting that they're essential. On the other, you've got classroom teachers, some of them rolling their eyes saying, "I've survived 15 years without writing them on the board. Why are they suddenly mandatory? Why do so many schools insist on them?" That's the big question. Why are they embedded into so many teaching and learning frameworks across the country? And what's the actual point, beyond compliance, of having them? Before we get into the arguments of for and against, let's make sure we're crystal clear and on the same page about what learning intentions and success criteria actually are. From a pedagogical point of view, a learning intention is a short, clear statement that explains what the students are expected to learn, not what they're expected to do. It's the conceptual or skill-based focus of the lesson. The success criteria, on the other hand, breaks down the how students will know they are on track. They outline the indicators, steps, or qualities that show progress towards the learning intention. This helps students check their own understanding and helps teachers give targeted feedback. Together, they create a shared understanding of the goal and reduce the perhaps unnecessary cognitive load by clarifying what matters most in a lesson. The cognitive load is reduced because when students walk into a lesson, their brains are often juggling prior knowledge, social dynamics of the class, what instructions you may be giving, task expectations, their own emotional state, the environment around them, the actual content they're learning, and much, much more. If we don't clearly signal the focus of the lesson, students waste cognitive bandwidth and energy trying to work out what's important for them and the lesson. Learning intentions and success criteria can act as that cognitive filter. They tell students what to pay attention to, what success looks like, and what the endpoint of the lesson will be. In turn, this frees up their working memory so students can actually learn the things that we want them to learn, not play that guessing game. That's the heart of why so many schools mandate them. Rather than being about bureaucracy, they try and instill clarity. However, it can still go wrong. Let's be honest, the real reason learning intentions and success criteria normally get a bad reputation is rarely because the idea is flawed. It's often around the implementation where it can fall short. Here are some of the most common pitfalls. Number 1, learning intentions and success criteria fall into the tick and flick syndrome. This is where teachers write them on the board because they have to, not because they use them, and students end up ignoring them. The teacher definitely ignores them, and the whole thing becomes a performative task and management walking by. Secondly, it can be compliance without support. That is, teachers who are feeling constantly monitored rather than supported by having learning intentions and success criteria as a part of their lesson sequence, and almost become the gotcha tool. This kills authenticity, and it actually breeds resentment within the teaching team. Thirdly, it can fall away when it becomes task-focused instead of learning-focused. A common mistake may be writing, "Today we're doing this worksheet," or "Today we're working on this particular task." It's not a learning intention, it simply becomes a list of what we're doing. Number 4, it's overly vague or overly complex. If the learning intention or success criteria is too academic, long, abstract, students won't internalize it. And often we see this being played out online in teacher forums by them saying it takes longer to write the learning intention and success criteria than to actually teach the lesson, or my students don't even look at it. That's a clear sign that the process has drifted away from purpose. Number 5, it can fall by the wayside if there's no connection to the actual lesson and its sequencing or flow. If the learning intention is written on the board but then never referenced again, it becomes meaningless. It may as well be another poster in the room. So if that's not what to do in terms of learning intentions and success criteria, how can we do it well without it being forced or fake and actually authentic? Here's the key. Learning intentions and success criteria only work when they are authentically matched to your lesson design. They should almost act as the true north of your lesson, the compass point that guides everything else. And here's how we can make them meaningful. Firstly, keep the language simple and student-friendly. If students can't explain the learning intention in their own words, it's not doing the job. Avoid the jargon and aim for clarity. Secondly, make them genuinely connected to the lesson. The learning intention should reflect the actual learning of the lesson, not some generic statement that's been pulled from the unit plan. For example, instead of saying, today we're learning about Macbeth, instead try, in Macbeth we're learning about the major character arcs of X, Y, and Z. Thirdly, use success criteria as stepping stones. Success criteria should feel actionable, not abstract. Some ideas: I can identify, I can explain, I can apply, I can justify, all cognitive verbs that align to the syllabus that students can make meaning of. They then become the roadmap for students and a handy feedback tool for you to use. Fourthly, embed them into the flow of your lesson. It doesn't matter whether learning intentions or success criteria are written in books, on the whiteboard, in PowerPoint, or spoken aloud even. What matters is how they are used during that lesson. Don't be afraid to reference them during modelling or explicit instruction, or use them to guide questioning. Let them shape the feedback, and which enables you to keep students on task and always going back to the why. Fifthly, don't obsess over the format, rather obsess over the clarity. Rather than saying, did every student write the learning intention in their book? Instead, we're saying, do students know what they're learning today? And how will they know they've achieved it when they're walking out of the lesson? If you answered yes to both of those questions, how we format it does not matter. Number 6, keep it authentic, not performative. If you're reading the learning intention off the board like a robot, students are going to tune out. However, if we weave it in naturally into your explanation, such as, here's what we're focusing on today, and here's how we'll know we've nailed it, it becomes meaningful. Number 7, use them to support differentiation. Success criteria can often be tiered or layered, giving students multiple entry points and stretch points without needing separate activities or worksheets. Finally, it's important to know that learning intentions and success criteria aren't magic. They're not the silver bullet, and they're certainly not to be the compliance stick used by leadership. At their best, they answer the most important question in any classroom. Do students know what they're learning today? And how will they know they've achieved it when they walk out? If you can answer yes to both, like I've said, you've set up the strong start for a lesson. You've reduced student cognitive load, and most importantly, you've created clarity for your learners. You've opened the door for a focused, direct learning that's accessible for many. That's why they matter. And really, that's why many schools mandate them. They genuinely improve learning. That's all for today's episode of Empowering Educators. If you're keen to dive deeper into more of what we do for both teachers and students at Empowerment Ed, or explore our face-to-face professional learning opportunities, head to www.empowerment-ed.com.au to see what we're building for educators like you. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, take care.